There sure is a lot coming out around this article. Yesterday I did a video. A'ja Wilson named the Time Athlete of the Year, Time Magazine. Somebody did have a great question in the comments. Who reads Time these days? That's a good point. That's a hell of a point, to be quite honest with you. But it seems that Time Magazine has reverted back to its D.
So here's what went down. One conversation completely wiped out a legend, and suddenly someone nobody expected was running the show. How does decades of being on top just disappear with a single phone call? What invisible powers are really making these calls about who's in and who's out? And why should anyone care about this story beyond just the building where it all happened? The aftermath is going to completely reshape what everyone expects, create new partnerships, and bring out the buried conflicts that have been quietly building for years.
That's a great honor. Congratulations to A'ja. But I'm like, what is all this ruckus about? So then we dive deep into it, and it seems like there's some paragraphs from this article that put down Caitlin Clark in order to prop up A'ja, which is crazy because if you guys remember, Caitlin Clark was Time's Sportsperson of the Year just last year. So I haven't actually gone into detail reading these. I wanted to live react to them with you. This video might be a little rambly, a little ranty, but let's jump right in. So
these supporters were convinced A'ja Wilson was bulletproof, like she was permanently part of Team USA, something so solid it couldn't even be questioned, much less taken away. That exact thinking is precisely what made what came next send genwaves throughout women's basketball and silently transformed who holds power in the sport in just one night. Enter Caitlin Clark. A'ja Wilson had been moving around for years, like her position was locked in stone, not something she had to keep proving, but something she was entitled to, backed by Olympic gold, WNBA championships, and this idea that her track record alone could beat out fresh energy, team chemistry, and where basketball was actually going. So when that regular Friday morning phone call from USA Basketball rang through, she answered thinking it would be about travel plans, practice times, or the usual ceremonial stuff that comes with being a seasoned superstar. Instead, she got hit with a wake-up call that completely turned her whole career story upside down. She wasn't getting moved to a backup position, wasn't being told to coach up the rookies, and wasn't getting temporarily benched for some rest or injury management. She got completely cut. No spot on the team, no chance at international glory, no World Cup opportunity, just a crystal clear message that Team USA had decided to go a different direction. What shocked everyone around Rare wasn't just that they made this call, but how obvious it seemed once you looked back at everything. A'ja had already mapped out her entire year expecting to play internationally, saying no to sponsorship deals, changing up her training routine, and talking in interviews like someone who thought her name would always be on the list. That assumption ended up being her fatal mistake, because while A'ja was playing like she deserved the spot automatically, USA Basketball was quietly making decisions based on stats, team chemistry studies, media influence reports, and remembering everything that had happened. She talked about respecting the work, about experienced players getting ignored, about storylines moving too quickly. Every statement was smooth enough to avoid direct conflict, but the overall message was crystal clear. When Clark's fame went through the roof, A'ja's tone got sharper. She started picking apart shooting stats, while completely ignoring assist numbers, trying to downplay Clark's impact by focusing only on cherry-picked statistics, and constantly redirecting attention from Clark's influence toward unnamed veterans who she thought deserved recognition more. Every achievement Clark hit seemed to make A'ja find another way to make it sound less important. USA Basketball was paying attention. The final straw wasn't one specific comment or media appearance. It happened when the concerns got so serious they were affecting whether players even wanted to participate. Athletes started quietly wondering if international training camps would turn toxic, if the coaching staff was all on the same page, and if internal drama would destroy their chances of winning on the global stage. For an organization that treats team chemistry like gold, this was completely unacceptable. While Asia's representatives were scrambling to figure out how a two-time Olympic champion could get left off a team that included someone with zero World Cup experience, the explanation was already written across 2 years of public action. USA Basketball wasn't looking at a misunderstood veteran. They were looking at a pattern of creating division, a supposed leader who couldn't handle being around the sport's biggest rising star. While Asia was dealing with the shock of getting dropped, another phone call was happening, and the vibe couldn't have been more opposite. Caitlin Clark wasn't just getting added to the roster, she was getting handed the reins, main point guard, the person running the offense, the public representative of Team USA going into the 2026 World Cup. This wasn't them getting caught up in media buzz. This was the result of months of internal strategy sessions. USA Basketball had already designed their entire game plan around Clark's skills, her ability to draw defenders, her control of the game's rhythm, and how she makes her teammates better even when her own shots aren't dropping. The analysts working for the program had studied how defenses completely changed their approach because of her, how just having her on the court created openings for everyone else, and how her basketball IQ worked perfectly with international rules. Clark had evolved beyond just being a player. She had become essential infrastructure. Her sponsorship deals made this reality even more obvious. With worldwide marketing campaigns already running, USA Basketball realized that having Clark represent America wasn't just about competitive advantage. It was about cultural influence. She was bringing American women's basketball into global markets it had never really conquered before, and she was doing it without drama, bitterness, or acting like anyone owed her anything. What made the final decision, though, wasn't statistics or marketing reach. It was about attitude. When Clark got the news, she didn't worry about team hierarchy, pressure, or what guarantees she'd get. She asked how she could help the team win. That response alone proved everything they needed to know. The difference between how these two players reacted told USA Basketball exactly what they needed to understand about leadership right now. One player treated the team like a stage for personal validation. The other treated it like a duty. Clark getting promoted represented a complete philosophy change. Team USA was done with protecting legacies just because they existed. They wanted unity, flexibility, and global impact. The organization picked forward momentum over looking backward and team chemistry over who had been there longest. In international games, there's no room for error. Moving screens get called every time. Being a veteran doesn't buy you anything. A player who depends on physical intimidation suddenly finds themselves fouling out instead of scoring. Clark's style of play dominates in that environment. She doesn't need referees to go easy on her, rely on scaring opponents. Her success comes from court spacing, perfect timing, seeing the whole floor, and making decisions that stay deadly no matter how strict the officiating gets. Even when her shots aren't falling, defenders can't ignore her because her presence alone completely changes how the offense operates. From USA Basketball's view, this wasn't just about picking the most talented players. It was about picking the right players for competing globally. Asia represented a style that needed special treatment to work. Asia getting cut sent shockwaves way beyond just one team roster. It rippled through every locker room in the league. Sponsors don't want controversy. They want representatives who expand the game, not split it apart. International leagues looking at American players aren't just checking box scores anymore. They're evaluating public image, leadership qualities, and how well players fit into team-first systems. Asia's accomplishments were never questioned. Her methods, Clark's continued success, accomplished without ever fighting back or responding to attacks, reinforced something the sport is finally learning. You can't tear down someone who keeps performing while staying composed. Eventually, the negativity only makes the critic look bad. International basketball has zero tolerance for petty drama. There are titles to win and fans to inspire. People want athletes who support the mission, not their own insecurity. A'ja Wilson thought her past achievements would shield her from consequences. Team USA saw it differently. The choice to remove her while giving Caitlin Clark complete control wasn't mean-spirited, impulsive, or disrespectful. It was calculated. It showed where women's basketball is going, not where it used to be. The future belongs to players who realize that making the game better makes everyone better. Clark represents that truth perfectly. That path forward is completely clear now, and it's changing how power, influence, and respect get earned in women's basketball. Team USA's choice didn't just change a roster. It changed what people expect from leaders in an era where the sport is growing faster than anyone imagined. For decades, staying around a long time and past success were treated like armor, keeping veterans safe from criticism even when the game moved past them. That time quietly ended when A'ja Wilson's name got left off the team. What made this decision hit so hard was how carefully it was handled. USA Basketball never went after her publicly, never put out a dramatic statement, and never opened up a debate about loyalty versus legacy. They just made their move. In top-level organizations, staying quiet while taking action often sends the strongest message possible. Behind the scenes, their reasoning was obvious. The program didn't want leaders who stayed relevant by putting others down or held on to status by opposing change. They wanted leaders who could push the sport forward without needing to make anyone else look smaller. Caitlin Clark matched that vision almost perfectly. Her rise was never powered by entitlement or anger. She never demanded spot. It came to her because of how she plays, how defenses lose their minds when she brings the ball up court, and how teammates automatically trust her choices. More importantly, she gets that attention isn't something that runs out. The spotlight doesn't need to be protected like property. When she speeds up the game, it's not about showing off. It's about forcing defenses into panic mode so her teammates can succeed. Even when her shooting is off, the court reshapes itself around her being there, creating chances that don't appear in stat sheets but decide who wins. A'ja Wilson's leadership, on the other hand, became more and more self-focused. Instead of adjusting to how the league was changing, she treated progress like a personal attack. Instead of welcoming new fans and global attention, she questioned if it was real. That attitude might work during frustrating moments, but it falls apart when you're trying to build something long-term. USA Basketball doesn't want to deal with managing grudges. They want to win gold medals while making the sport bigger worldwide. Those objectives need leaders who see growth as adding value instead of creating threats. Clark embodies that approach in everything she does and says. There's also a generational shift happening that you can't ignore. Younger players coming into the league grew up understanding basketball differently. They're comfortable with spacing, pace, and skill-based dominance instead of just physical power. They value working together, being visible, and adapting to change. For them, Clark isn't unusual. She's the model to follow. By putting her in the most important position on the national team, USA Basketball endorsed that model. They showed the next group of players exactly what qualities will get rewarded. For A'ja, this moment is a turning point. She can keep treating this decision like a betrayal, misunderstanding, or discrimination. Or she can face the fact that her approach pushed away the very organization she thought would always have her back. International basketball didn't reject her skill. They rejected the attitude that came with those skills. The strange thing is, A'ja still has what it takes to change her story. Talent doesn't just vanish overnight, but changing your story requires being humble. And being humble has never been optional at this level. The players who last are the ones who grow and adapt. Clark's journey is still happening. Getting named starting point guard isn't a crowning ceremony. It's a job assignment. The pressure will be crushing. Expectations will be brutal. Every play will get analyzed to death. That's what happens when you become the face of something bigger than just yourself. But everything about Clark's path suggests she understands that responsibility. A'ja, at least the way she's been operating, doesn't get it. That truth doesn't erase A'ja's achievements. It puts them in perspective. And perspective matters when you're building a team designed to dominate globally, not just at home. The future of women's basketball won't be determined by who showed up first, or who won the most awards under the old system. It'll be determined by who can succeed as the system grows, diversifies, and goes global. Team USA made their bet clear. This wasn't about choosing one athlete over another. It was about choosing what they want to represent. An identity based on growth instead of complaints, opportunity instead of obstacles, leadership that lifts everyone up instead of competing for air. A'ja Wilson believed her spot was guaranteed forever. Caitlin Clark earned hers by never taking anything for granted. That difference explains this entire situation, and it shows why one player is getting ready to lead on the world stage, while the other is stuck watching the sport move on without her.